Hey soldiers, let's talk about prepping financially. We're going to go over 5 things you need to consider in order to prepare for the unfortunate. We're living in strange times. So you got anything from this bank outage that occurred a few days ago where customers of Wells Fargo, US Bank, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America did not get their paychecks. Okay, so you got stuff like that. Then you see it in the streets every day, civil disobedience. You got large crowds. You got the threats from actors outside of America because we're fighting wars on 2 fronts. There's a lot going on. So don't you think it would be a good idea to have some food on hand so you don't have to rely on the system, water, so you don't have to be as reliant on the system, power generation, okay, and defense, again, so that you don't have to be 100% reliant on the system. Now, you take it a bridge further, and you need to get financially prepped also. So we're going to go over 5 ways that you can do that. And listen, I want to hear from you. What other ways are out there to get prepped financially? What most concerns you about what's going on in the world? Look, we've got debt that's just incredible. We got $33 trillion and climbing of debt. All right. The whole system seems like a house of cards right now. We're looking at situations where the United States of America is having trouble recruiting for its various branches of the military. Don't you think that would embolden enemies of America? Okay, we saw what just happened in the Middle East here. Is that possible here in America? Well, look, we need to get financially prepped. So let's get into 5 ways that you might want to consider implementing in your household to make sure you and your family can weather whatever storm comes by. And look, this is not about being Grizzly Adams and, being totally disconnected. This is about reducing reliance on the system. Just like buying a generator reduces your reliance on the power company in case a hurricane comes through, doing these steps or considering these steps that we're going to go over has the same effect on reducing your reliance on the financial system. Look, quick story. 2003, my wife and I had just moved into our house, and Hurricane Isabel came up the mid-Atlantic, flooded all kinds of places. We didn't get flooded, thank God, but we did get our power knocked out, and it didn't come right back on either. We ended up having to first cook all the food on the grill, okay? We had our neighbors over, and they ate the food, and, we didn't want it to spoil, right? We had no way to store it. So we had filled up the bathtubs with water, and that went like that, okay? That didn't last long at all. My wife and I had to end up retreating to Connecticut, where her parents live. They're in Connecticut. So we had to say, hey, we got to break camp. Now, my neighbors who had been here before us, they had generators. They were fine. What did we do? What was the first thing we did when we landed in Connecticut? We went and we got a generator, and we got the panel to install so that when we got back, we could become less reliant on the system. We got that generator installed immediately when we got back. And boy, has that been a great amount of peace of mind. So that's what we want from our financial preps, peace of mind. So the first tip might sound familiar to you. Build an emergency fund. Now, you've got to decide whether or not a 1-month or 6-month, or a 3-month rather, or a 6-month emergency fund is appropriate. Now, there are a lot of variables here. Like, are you some kind of seasonal worker where you make the bulk of your money in a few months and then it's light from then on? That might call for you having an emergency fund that is able to survive 8 months, okay, because you don't work several months of the year already. So this is going to be a variable. However, you do need to establish an emergency fund. You need to determine how much the cost of living is for your family throughout the year. And then that'll be a good starting point to develop the amount of money you need to save and how long that money is intended to last. Think only of necessities when you're putting this fund together, such as utilities, food, your car loan, if you have one, any medical bills that you might be aware of, or prescriptions you need to get usually, fuel, of course, your housing. So if you can, if you want to shoot for the fences, set aside 50% of your savings to reach this goal. If you really are someone who, would benefit from that. Again, it's a variable. You've got to sit down and figure it out. Maybe there are multiple streams of income coming into that house, so your calculation would look different. But you've got to establish an emergency fund. Number 2. Now, these are all suggestions, okay? Converting a portion of your money into some form of hard currency or real value, like real estate. Real estate's a good one because depending on where you buy it, that could set up a whole nother element of your plan. If you bought a farmette, for example, now your prep has gone from just having a whole bunch of cash in the bank to something that can actually house and feed your family. Another consideration you might want to think about is converting some of your cash into, or currency into, gold and or silver. Now, silver is great to barter with. There are other aspects of bartering that you might consider. Medical supplies, alcohol, okay? All of this stuff in a worst case scenario is going to be currency. It's going to have value that individuals agree on, all right? You could run into a situation where, depending upon the emergency, like I mentioned, the hurricane, the gas stations in my area were not operating, okay? They have electronic pumps. They have electronic cash registers. There was no way you could walk in there with cash. It wasn't nothing. No transactions could occur, okay? So if you had, your credit card, it's a no-go. Your debit card, a no-go. All right, so think about that. What percentage of your overall savings should go to that goal? You've got to decide that for yourself. I would never convert 100% of my assets into any one asset. That's just me. Invest in survival needs. What are they? Now, these can be an investment. When you're talking about protecting yourself and your family, now, there are ways to do that. We're not a channel that focuses on those ways, but you're a smart audience. You can figure it out. So you need to build up your emergency supply cache of food, batteries, water filtration, dry goods, toilet paper. Okay, you saw what happened with the 2020 debacle, and toilet paper became a currency, believe it or not. It was so scarce, it became very valuable. Now, this is not something you can run out tomorrow and run to Walmart, spend $10,000. No, this is something that you can do over time. I don't believe that a doomsday scenario is imminent if it ever happens, but it's always good to be reliant. Heck, you could be in a situation like we were in when 4 feet of snow landed on the ground and we were not able to leave our home. So we got firewood just in case the electricity goes out. 4 feet of snow. I don't even know if the generator would have worked in that, but whatever. Story for another day. We got contingencies and redundancies, and that's what you should consider too. Take some courses and get yourself trained for certain things. Like, for example, an emergency medical course where you can learn CPR, how to use a defibrillator. Suppose you're in an emergency situation, there's 3 feet of snow on the ground, and God forbid someone in your family has a cardiac arrest. You've got to know how to deal with that, all right? So you can look around at your community colleges. They offer those types of courses. Believe me, those are investments, okay? So take a look at investing in your survival preparation and your longevity throughout any type of issue that may occur. Also, these skills are skills that could be bartered for goods and services, depending on what skills you have, like farming or knowing how to grow a garden or identify different medicinal plants or edible plants. That's valuable stuff right there. Invest in your retirement. Okay, there's going to come a time where you don't want to work or are unable to work because you're older. And you don't want to have to get out there and compete with these young folk who, think faster and are stronger, okay, in order to make money. So when we talk about prepping financially, this is something, as the world changes, you are not going to be as competitive from an occupational standpoint as someone who is 20 years your senior, or your junior rather, or more. So invest in your retirement so that one day you can opt out of the work world, all right? If your company offers a match on the 401k, why aren't you investing in that to that max? Are you looking at other vehicles that will exempt you from things like taxes that are going to eat you alive in retirement, quite possibly, unless you exempt yourself from them? And there are ways to do that. We talk about them all the time. Roth IRA, permanent life insurance policies. All right, number 5, pay down your debt. You got to pay down that debt, because if you can't do that, then you become a debt slave in many respects. You're paying this high interest credit card debt. That's one problem. Other debts include your mortgage debt. You want to own that home free and clear at some point, so that if a financial calamity or some other sort of calamity occurs in the nation, at least you have a roof over your head, okay? That's very, very important. Your cars, same thing. Get that car interest, which is higher than it has been in recent years, off of you by paying that car off. Call these bill collectors that you have credit accounts with and ask them, are there any prepayment penalties? You want to be sure that you're not getting yourself into a more expensive situation. Usually there are not, but that's something you need to check on. So guys, that is it for our 5 financial preps. We're going to have more, but let me know what you think about those, and if there are others that you believe demand our attention as well. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.